my name is Mindy Diller, and I am a local dietitian here in the West Texas area. And I'm here today to talk to you about food label facts and how to lower your salt. And I know many of you may have already learned how to read labels or nutrition information that I may be presenting today, but sometimes we just need reminding, or maybe we've heard something that we hadn't heard before. So we're going to start off with basic label reading. The label on food packages usually tell you a story, not only where the product's from, who makes it, but what's in it and all the nutritional benefits that you can get out of it, as far as vitamins, minerals, fat, calories, carbohydrates, you name it. So just remember that whenever you're looking at a label or a product, that it does tell you so much. And we need these informations to be able to better our health. So most products do have labels. There are some that do not, that aren't required to have them, such as spices, water, and raw produce. And a fun fact, just to know, that the nutrition fact label currently appears on 6.5 billion food packages. So our information is out there. The government has encouraged these manufacturers to put the correct information just to help us benefit our health and to know what we're eating. So this is a basic food label. So I'm going to explain it in detail. And you can see all the highlighted colors, and each one kind of color codes it through this program that I'm bringing to you today, just so you can better understand what you're looking at. And it can be confusing. Marketing programs across the nation design packages to not necessarily mislead us, but to try to promote health maybe whenever a healthy benefit is not actually there. So understanding how to read not only the front of the package, what some of those low sodium, low fat claims mean. So here's just the basic label, and then as we move through the program today, I'm going to keep repeating this actual label, and we'll use different examples with them. So first, just know that anytime you look at a nutrition label, you're going to start from the top of the label and work all the way down. So first, our main focus is going to be serving size. And you can see in the light gray area, under nutrition facts, it has a serving size. And for this particular label, it says 1 cup is a serving size. But underneath that, it's servings per container. And you can see that it says 2 servings. So all the nutrition information is based on a serving size that's noted in that small space. So if you eat more than 1 serving according to this nutrition label, you need to adjust appropriately. And I'm going to explain that because it can be tricky and you have to kind of know how much you're eating. So let's say that this is a label for macaroni and cheese and you're going to eat 1 cup of it. Well, in the entire package, according to this nutrition facts label, it says that there's 2 in each container. So there's probably a total of 2 full cups in this package if you made it at home yourself or purchased it at the store already made, either one. So whenever you consume this product, if you consume only half the product, then that should be 1 cup, and that's 1 serving. And so all the way down the label, that 1 serving is 250 calories, a total fat of 12 grams, and so on. If you ate the entire package, then you would double that, and it would be closer to 500 calories and 24 grams of fat. So you have to watch your serving size. And that is very misleading on many products. Some soft drink cans or bottles will actually be 2 servings. A large, it's not necessarily Gatorade, but it's like a sports drink that I have seen before in the store, and it's 2.5 servings. And many times we just grab that bottle and we down it, not realizing that we're drinking for 2 or 3 people. So be sure that you really focus on that serving size as 1 cup. And something else you can do at home is actually measure out and use a measuring cup that first few times just to see what, if it was macaroni and cheese, see what a cup of that actually looks like, so you can get used to knowing what an appropriate portion size might be. So second thing on our label, we're going to look at calories. So calories is directly under that serving size and that serving container in the orange area. So calories are on the label, and it provides a total calorie amount for that food or drink. And remember, it's per serving. So again, if we added up the calories for the entire package, it would be close to 500 calories. Now, if we were just having one serving, again, it's 250. So it's best to know how much you really are getting. Again, we can easily eat the whole box and get way more calories than we really meant to. So our next one is going to be the third item, which is in the bright yellow, and that is fat. So watch out for high-fat foods. And there's a lot going on this slide, and I'll just simplify it a little bit. Under the yellow heading, it says total fat. And then it has the different kinds of fat broken out underneath it. There's saturated fat and trans fat. And two fats that aren't listed in that gold or yellow area would be mono and polyunsaturated fats. So I'm going to talk to you about the total fat. The total fat adds up saturated, trans fat, mono, and polysaturated fats all together, and it gives you a total fat number. Now, cholesterol is not included in this, and some people believe that it is. Cholesterol is a fat, but it is not included in the total fat amount. Okay, so total fat grams, you will see that it has a breakdown with saturated, trans, poly, and mono. Trans fat warning. You want to choose items that are lower in trans fat or no trans fat at all. Trans fats can increase our risk of heart disease. You should only eat 2 grams of trans fat or less for optimal health and to reduce risk of heart disease and complications. Now, saturated fat is the other fat that we really have to watch out for, because it also can add to heart disease complications and cause issues with our arteries. Trans fat is probably the worst fat that we can consume, that can clog our arteries and is very damaging to our heart muscle. Okay, so you should eat less than 2 grams of trans fats a day. And then, of course, the mono and polyunsaturated fats that aren't listed under the gold and yellow area, generally those are good fats. So anytime we see those listed on a label that's underneath the total fat, it's a beneficial fat. All right, so the mono unsaturated fat and the polyunsaturated fats are the healthy fats that we should consume as often as possible. It is still a fat, so we don't want to consume a really large amount, but if it's on the label, that is a beneficial fat. So our fourth item is going to be these green areas here, and you will see that it is the fiber. Fiber, are you getting enough? Are you getting close to 25 to 30 grams a day? These labels will help you determine that. So dietary fiber is under the carbohydrates section. Now, if you need a reminder of what carbohydrates are starch, grains, potatoes. There are some carbohydrate vegetables, which are potatoes, peas, and corn. All of those things are carbohydrates. Rice, pasta, crackers, those kinds of things. Anything that contains a starch will be given a carbohydrate count. When looking at a grain product such as pasta, rice, bread, or crackers, you will also want to look for those that are higher in dietary fiber. So we want to choose items that are 3 grams of fiber or more, because it helps reduce our risk of high cholesterol. Cholesterol can bind to fiber, and fiber can help pull that out of the body. unnecessary fats can bind to fiber. And also it helps with a healthy colon, the higher amount of fiber that we have in the digestive system, just to keep things moving. So looking at this label, you can see that we have total carbohydrates is 31 grams, and then we have 0 fibers. So is this let's say it's mac and cheese again. Is this an appropriate item that we maybe should choose for a healthy benefit? If we were just considering looking at the fiber, probably not, because there is 0 grams. And so it's really not a beneficial fiber food. Okay. Now you'll see under the carbohydrates there are sugars there. So people that are watching out for diabetes or have sugar sensitivities, or maybe you're just trying to control how much sugar you consume, this is where you can find that on the label as well. And then fifth, one of our big ones today that we're going to talk in depth about today is the sodium or salt. Salt is also known as sodium, and sometimes we kind of need a clarification there, but it's usually the same thing. We'll talk about the different kinds of salt, but salt refers to sodium. So try to keep your daily sodium intake less than 2,300 milligrams. That is only 1 teaspoon per day. And you think about what a teaspoon really is. And if you need to measure out a teaspoon of salt and put it in something just to kind of get a visual of how much that is, it's not very much. So foods that contain less than 140 milligrams of sodium are considered to be low sodium foods. So when we look for health benefits on a nutrition label under the sodium, let's say our doctor said that we had some high blood pressure and we needed to cut back on our salts so we don't have heart disease or cardiovascular disease in the near future. So one way to do that is to look at your label and see how much sodium is in the product. Now remember, if you eat this whole package and it is 2 servings per container, then how much sodium are you really getting? 280 milligrams. Okay, so anytime we look at a label, and it gets really intense with sodium when you're trying to focus on that, because so many processed foods, so many foods eating out at restaurants, fast foods, they're all just loaded in sodium. So we're going to look a little bit more into some of those items. There's a lot here on this slide, but I just wanted you to have a quick take home here. Basically what other things might be on the label. You still need to watch out for those portion sizes when choosing foods that are described as non-fat or sugar-free. The one thing is that manufacturers are not going to sacrifice flavor because they still want you to buy the product. So when you're shopping for no fat or fat-free or sugar-free products, please realize that when they take something away from a product, they're going to put something else back in. So if it says sugar-free, then it's very likely that it may be really high in fat and really high in salt. So again, they're not going to sacrifice their product because they still want to sell you a product. So on the front of the labels, those can be very confusing. It can say any of these things: non-fat, no fat, low fat, low sugar. And so those are some other misconceptions that we kind of have to think about when looking at a package. And when in doubt, flip it over and read the label. Now, it does take some practice looking at labels in the beginning, but then once you start to kind of understand what's in products and how the labels read and what looks appropriate for portion size on your plate, then you may not have to do it as often. But when in doubt, always flip it over. So every food label will show total calories, food energy from fat, total fat, saturated fat, cholesterol, sodium, and total carbohydrates. Total carbohydrates also includes fiber and sugar. And then we also have some protein on our food label as well. So there's also some vitamins and minerals, and there are vitamins such as vitamin A, calcium, and at the lower end of the label that you can go back and look at, you'll see those percentages. And sometimes percentages on a nutrition label can be confusing. So I would focus on what we talked about today, just the grams or the milligrams that are appropriate for you, and try to not focus so much on those percentages that can kind of get confusing. My favorite part about a label is the ingredients list. So basically, whenever you're trying to read what's in a product under the ingredients, it's listed by weight. Let's take a box of cereal, for instance. When you turn it over on the back side or on the label side and you're looking at the ingredients list of what's in the product, that's usually below the nutrition facts. And you'll see that the ingredients listed is sugar is the first ingredient, and then flour will be the second ingredient, or whatever it might be. Whatever it starts out with is the highest weighted component of that product. And that can be a little bit confusing. But basically, just the quick part of it is look at it, whatever ingredient is first, that's what's mostly made of that product. So if it says sugar, then it mostly has sugar in the product. If it leads with wheat flour, then it has mostly flour in the product. A good rule of thumb is to say for cereal, for instance, if we want to choose maybe a healthier cereal, choose one that maybe sugar is third or fourth down the list. So then we realize that it's not just a sugary type cereal. To salt or not to salt? Salt or sodium plays an important role in the body. We do need some because we have to have our fluid balance. We have fluid balance in our body, muscle strength, and nerve functions all use salt as an important function there. However, most of us get too much anyway, whether it's from eating out, whether it's from fast foods, whether it's from convenience foods. So the U.S. guidelines suggest that we should get about 2,300 milligrams per day. And again, this is just a reminder, that's 1 teaspoon of table salt. Now, it depends if you're in a specific population. And what I mean by this, Americans that are 51 and older, if they're African American, if they have diabetes, or possibly if they have chronic kidney disease and heart disease, all of those people in that category should drop to 1,500 milligrams a day, which is not very much. That's not even half a teaspoon's worth, which is sometimes hard to do. So let's move on to why too much is bad for you. Well, basically, the Center for Disease Control, the CDC, advises that consuming too much salt can increase your blood pressure. If we have heart disease or cardiovascular disease, or maybe even diabetes, we're already at risk for high blood pressure. So anytime we can reduce this, it is going to be more beneficial for our health. Too much salt in your diet can also increase your risk for heart attacks and stroke. So there's a great reason to back off of it. High salt intake can increase your risk for kidney failure and early death. And death is inevitable, so if we can reduce early death, the benefits are there. High salt intake results in fluid retention. So basically, salt pulls water. And this one way to remember this that I learned in my studies is salt sucks. So anytime you consume a large amount of salt, it's going to pull fluid or suck fluid away from important areas of the body. One way to remember that is maybe your feet swell, or your hands swell, or your legs swell when you've maybe been on them too long during the day, or maybe when you had a really high salted item like possibly pizza or Asian food. This is a change in blood volume in the body, and it adds added pressure on your organs. So this is a great reason to back off of your salt. So how do I reduce my salt intake? Well, understanding the packaging. First, we started out with the labels, and I suggested that on a nutrition label, we really need to look for 140 milligrams of sodium or less. And you're going to realize that this does get difficult. So how do we choose a product that is low in salt? One, is it under 140 milligrams per serving? The packaging of food products can be confusing, of course. Now, there's a lot of question is, do I just choose fresh food? And sometimes fresh foods can be expensive or they can deteriorate very quickly on the counter, such as fruits and vegetables or even in the refrigerator. So it doesn't always have to be fresh food. Fresh food is a great option, but maybe not always possible for us. So we can choose frozen foods and canned foods. But to be able to choose a healthier product that's lower in sodium, I want you to look for these things. On a frozen food package, we want to look for low sodium, no sugar added, low fat, or unsweetened. Anytime you find something in its own juice or unsweetened products such as fruit or even vegetables, that's going to be your best choice. Again, when in doubt, flip over that package and look at the ingredients to see if there's any added salt or sugar in that product. So how about canned goods? Canned goods are often on sale and they're beneficial because we can put them in our cabinet. They can hang out there for a long time, so whenever we need them, they're a good resource. However, canned goods are extremely high in sodium. In fact, that's where most of our home cooking sodium comes from, is canned goods, many times. So you want to look for products that says low sodium, or no sugar added, or no salt added, low fat, in its own juices and unsweetened for your fruits. So low sodium, low salt, what does this mean? Now, when we see the front of a package, it says sodium free or salt free, but that doesn't really mean a lot to us. We just assume there isn't any, but that's not always true. So here's 4 to 5 taglines that you might see on a product. Okay, so low sodium or sodium free and salt free means that it has 5 milligrams of sodium or less. So even though it says free, it still has salt. Now remember, we talked about getting products that are 140 milligrams or less, so this only has 5 milligrams, so it's probably a pretty good product for us. How about unsalted or no salt added? Now there's natural salt in foods. There's salt in water that we, boil our pasta with. And so we have to consider that even though it says no salt added, there may still be a large amount of salt in that product. How about very low in sodium? This one's a good tip because if it says very low in sodium, then it has to have 35 milligrams of sodium or less. Low in sodium, and this kind of all runs together, but this is just a reminder, low in sodium means that it has that 140 milligrams of sodium per serving that we talked about on our label. And then reduced sodium or less sodium. And this one's confusing because it goes off percentages. So I might stick with the top 4 there, looking for sodium free, unsalted, or very low or low sodium. But basically this last one talks about reduced sodium or less sodium. So if you had 2 products together and one says, let's say it's 2 kinds of bread, and one bread says 25% less sodium. That means that it is 25% less sodium than a traditional product. It does get confusing, and so just remember it does take practice with all this label reading and manufacturers trying to kind of bring you in for you to purchase that product. It's okay to stop and say, hey, what's in this product, and flip it over. And it does get a little frustrating at times because sometimes some of these products are hard to find. So just use these tools to help you. So what are the highest salted foods? This one might scare you just a little bit. The U.S. Department of Agriculture lists typical sodium content for thousands of foods on their website. And I just pulled a few just to give you a little bit of information of maybe the products that you use and maybe why they're not the best. So some of these numbers might shock you. Some people use this dehydrated onion soup for stews and dips, or even to actually make a soup. One package of the dehydrated onion soup mix is 3,132 milligrams. Now, it's very unlikely that you're going to eat the whole package, but you might. Or is that really what you want to feed your family? So remember, what's our daily value that we're supposed to get? 2,300 milligrams per day. So this one package of soup mix busts that for your entire day. How about seasoned breadcrumbs? Sometimes people put it in meatloaf or other baking goods that they're creating at home. So 1 cup of seasoned breadcrumbs has 2,111 milligrams. That's a lot for just breadcrumbs, especially when you have bread at home and you could make your own. Spaghetti sauce is up there. It's 1,203. And canned chicken soup. Now, I'll tell you right now that soup is a big offender. And I know that there's ramen noodle soups out there for 10 cents. But I will tell you that your health and your well-being is worth more than 10 cents. So check that ramen noodles. I tell people all the time that there are better products out there for you than ramen. And I know it's inexpensive. But I encourage you and challenge you to find something better for you than a box of ramen soup. So canned chicken noodle soup, 1,106 milligrams. That's for 1 cup. And you think about your soup bowl. Do you just eat 1 little cup of soup, or do you get a big Jethro bowl and fill it up? So just keep that in mind, how much you're actually eating. So frozen turkey and gravy, you can see it's up there in the 700s. Canned cream style corn. And then some of your sauces like teriyaki sauce. Here's the other big offenders. And we're getting close to the ones that we use every day. Vegetable juices are high in salt. Beef and pork salamis are high in salt. Jalapeno peppers. More marinades. And then here's one that I recently picked up this week that I wanted to talk to you about, the giant pickle. I know it's a movie goer's favorite sometimes, or at the ballpark, but I will tell you, 1 big pickle has 2,760 milligrams. For 1 pickle, that is your entire day's worth of salt. And you probably ate other items throughout that day. So think about being at the ballpark, eating that pickle, and then going out to eat after a game and maybe eating hamburgers and fries and such like that. So it's very easy that you would come home and have consumed, 8,000 milligrams of salt. It's easy to do. So processed foods are serious offenders. And I mean breakfast meats, bread, cheese, hot dogs, lunch meat, soup, cured meats, and dried meats. So I encourage you to look for a lower salted product. Some of these convenient foods are loaded in salt. So change your taste and change your life. So you can see I included a small little taste bud chart there to see where our taste buds actually are. And we're going to focus on the salty one. Did you know that you can change your taste? So taste buds adapt to our diet or whatever we consume or put in our mouths. So we get used to that taste of salt and fat and sugars, and this makes our taste buds crave more. So if we eat a whole lot of salt, then we're going to want to taste salt the next meal and the next meal. So you can alter this yourself. This is a lot of technical stuff, but it is basically called the neuron adaptation. Less sensitivity to flavor. As we eat more, we want more. So science has proved that you can retrain your taste buds if you eat less salt starting today. Sometimes that's difficult, and I'm going to tell you how to do that. So first, you can try this. Resetting your taste buds takes time. Lower your salt and fat and sugar foods for 21 to 30 days. That's only a month's worth. And you can see if your food tastes different. So I challenge you to get started on that, and we'll go into a couple more tips here in just a moment. This is a chart that I just wanted to share with you today, and food does have natural salt, so why add more? And if we alter our taste buds, then we're not going to want that salty food anymore. But the 77%, that's how much Americans get per day of processed foods, where most of our salt is coming from. So processed foods is 77% salt that we ingest into our body. Now, naturally occurring salt is going to be 12% of our foods. Okay, so that's when you buy a potato or an orange or an apple, it has a small amount of salt in it. So those total 12%. While we're eating, we tend to salt 6% more on our own food. And then how about just cooking at home? We use 5% of the salt. So what if we cooked at home with natural occurring salt in the regular products that we buy? That would only be 17%. So you can reduce your salt intake depending on how you eat, how you buy food, what kind of food you buy, and mostly how you prepare it. And you know, a lot of times we go out to eat. That's what we do for comfort and entertainment with our friends and our family, and we celebrate. And so I am not suggesting that you don't do those things. There are some tools out there, especially through Healthy Lubbock. We have a Lubbock Healthy Dining Guide that gives you some instruction and some direction when you go to certain restaurants, maybe what to choose that would be lower in salt. You can find that on their website, thehealthylubbock.org, or you can ask for one of those handouts. So this is just kind of a neat little chart. 44% of U.S. Sodium intake comes from 10 types of food. And these are all the foods that we eat. Bread, rolls, that's the top. You can get the most sodium in your diet from bread. And then you have cold cuts and cured meat like bacon, sausage, ham. And then of course the glorious pizza that we all love. Poultry, fish, chicken, and turkey. Soups, sandwiches, cheese. And so you can see the percentage where all those come from. So those are our top 10 foods that most of us eat. And it's their highest sodium foods. So remember that you're worth more than that 7.4% from that bread that you get all that sodium from. So what kind of salt should I use? A lot of times people tell me, oh, I use this kind of salt, so it's better for me. Well, just know that salt, no matter what it's called, is still salt. It's still sodium. It can still make your blood pressure rise. It can still be hard on your body. It can still pull fluid. Whether it's called kosher salt, table salt, sea salt, sodium chloride, it's still salt. So which salt is better for me? Well, because we get so much in our diet, maybe not adding any. But here's the difference between table salt and sea salt. Table salt is highly processed, which removes important minerals that we might have gotten from it before it was processed. Because all of us want clean white salt, right? But it does have iodine added to it, which is important for our thyroid health. So the salt that we do